Indie developer Futu Studios is releasing Souls of Chronos on the Switch, an isometric RPG that promises clean, chibi-styled visuals and interesting gameplay mechanics. But is it worth your time, or is it soul destroying? Well, thank you to the publishing team for the review code, and now let's find out. The world is ravaged by the apocalypse, sending everything into disarray. Facing his impending death, a young boy named Sid crosses paths with Tori, a girl with the power of manipulating time. 15 years later, in the harbour town of Estella, two main gangs fight for control. Things are complicated by one of the gang members being murdered, and investigating what happened will set Sid and Tori off on an adventure of a lifetime. So this is an isometric RPG spread over 5 chapters. This review is based on about 25 hours worth of gameplay, surpassing chapter 3. Gameplay is broken into 2 parts, the standard exploration and the quest undertaking, and the combat itself. As with many other games of its ilk, the main quests will see you progress through the game, and the side quests will reward the player with gold and loot. You will mainly control Sid, who can equip a bladed or ranged weapon and a secondary weapon which can be obtained as the story unfolds. These can be upgraded by a blacksmith by spending gold and using random materials found within the world or dropped by defeated enemies. The game highlights the story stats system, which allows the player to select an answer during conversations. Each of the answers will be tied to one of the 6 traits, and selecting one will increase its amount. Although the system seemed to have little impact on the gameplay, some actions can only take place if your traits are high enough. An example of this is a side quest where Sid and Tori had to collect money from a poor family. The options presented resulted in forcing the mother to pay up, which I was not willing to do. I could however support them if my street mentality trait was high enough. This meant that your character's personality took form depending how you treated each situation, as well as impacting other ones in the future. The game has 4 possible endings, which are impacted by the results of these traits towards the end of the story, which in turn helps promote playing the game multiple times. Tori is controlled independently and will grab any dropped loot from enemies during battles. She also differs from Sid in other ways. Firstly, she can have food equipped, and these will offer different passive buffs during combat. Although she cannot equip weapons, her time manipulating powers have a skill tree where the player can tweak it in order to suit their playstyle. She will also gain costumes that offer different fighting styles, which can potentially turn her into an attack-focused Valkyrie or a healing supporter. As mentioned before, the game is primarily split into 2 sections, and the combat is similar to that found in a twin-stick shooter and takes place in an arena where the enemies spawn in. Overall, there are a few enemy types, these being ones that barge into the player, those who fire status debuffs, and those who throw explosives that cover an area of effect. You can choose to use your blade, or in my case the short-ranged Nidhogg gun, which gave me far more wiggle room. Tori will again act independently during these segments. My secondary weapon of choice was the bomb drop, mainly due to its area of effect and its utility as a trap for incoming enemies. Each landed hit will charge Tori's Chronos gauge, which will pause time for around 5 seconds and allow her to carry out attacks. The game's narration is decent, albeit pretty text heavy. It is written like a book, with a few passages describing what is happening in the scene, followed by a monologue of the character within the conversation. Although it's great to see the developer go to great lengths at immersing the player with descriptive sentences of the scenario, it did for the most part hinder the pacing of the game. It's just easier when the text is composed of pure conversation, especially since the visual cues do the job nicely. I did however find the combat quite fun, and the diversity between Sid and Tori added to the strategy of defeating each wave whilst keeping the game engaging. The arsenal of secondary weapons as well as Tori's styles did add to the gameplay, which would have become pretty stale without it. Although not particularly hard, I did get overwhelmed by enemies that rained speedy attacks that made me flinch, ending my playthrough. I suggest saving regularly whenever you find the means to do so, as dying meant reloading my last save. There is an autosave feature, but it seemed to do little to assist in this matter. Some negatives to cover now, I'm afraid, with the first being some soft lock issues that I encountered, mainly becoming stuck on scenery for example, with no way of freeing myself. Another frustration took the form of a particular area which you should have been able to leave, avoiding combat altogether if you wished to, but there were instances of this not working properly, forcing me to stay, which was very annoying if I was particularly low on health during these times. These are issues that may see a patch soon, but they hindered the gameplay in the meantime, I'm sorry to say. There were a few other annoyances too, such as a trap during chapter 2 where you must avoid a boulder, and whilst this is quite easy to do for you, your AI controlled partner is knocked off the screen constantly, causing you to have to go and recover them. The indie studio though should be commended for the basic premise, which is enjoyable with that RPG element merged with the twin stick shooting, but a few issues do hamper the enjoyment, and with this in mind, gameplay unfortunately gets 13 out of 20. Controls are good for the most part and require little effort to move around and carry out the actions you need, and they score 17 out of 20. In terms of the visuals, the mix of anime within cutscenes and conversations juxtaposed with the charming chibi characters on screen make this a pleasantly captivating RPG. The scenery has a hand-drawn aesthetic to it with bold black outlines and a soft colour palette, making the game pop out, especially on the OLED screen. Due to the nature of isometric games, your character will have the tendency of disappearing behind the environment, but these will become transparent in order to let you see the position of the player. The font is of a fair size overall, and I did not notice any frame drops at all. I did however encounter issues with some assets appearing as moving pink squares, and in other instances the whole screen. These occurred too randomly to suggest what could have caused it, but as with the soft lock issues, they hampered the experience significantly. It's a shame because the visuals are clean and effects seen during battle, such as the omission of colour during time freezes, add to the drama. I particularly liked the onomatopoeic effects given to footsteps and gun sounds, just to name a few. It really gives the impression of interacting with a comic book. The soundtrack has some really great songs to be experienced for an RPG, although variety is few and far between, with the same songs playing over and over again. A more varied assortment of songs would have gone down a treat. Visuals would certainly have scored higher, but due to some technical issues they scored just 12 out of 20. Audio is of a decent standard but lacks variety and scores 14 out of 20. Souls of Chronos cost £17.09 and regional equivalents are on your screen now. The game is fun and throws in a fusion of twin stick with RPG elements, and going for the true ending may take a few playthroughs. As with most RPGs, your mileage will differ, mainly on how you play the game, how many side quests you tend to partake in, that sort of thing. There's a rich story here too, which many will enjoy, but the lack of polish and some technical issues as mentioned a moment ago do detract from the overall score, and on balance value gets 13 out of 20. To conclude, Souls of Chronos is a fun isometric RPG that brings subtle new mechanics along with a detailed story. Fans of the genre will enjoy this a lot, especially since it's only 5 chapters long, which will be welcomed for some who perhaps are a bit burnt out on sinking 70 to 100 hours into such games. Some difficulty spikes from bosses and areas as well as the annoying traps could have been better thought out, but the biggest issue I had was the soft locking bugs that glued me to the scenery, as this cost me over an hour's worth of gameplay. With some more time and polish, this could truly become a fan favourite, as the passion is definitely there and hopefully a patch is released soon, but as it stands, those issues do hamper an otherwise enjoyable experience. Souls of Chronos gets a SwitchUp score of 69%. Thank you everybody for watching this review, I hope you enjoyed it. Please do remember to leave a like. A big thank you to Azdin from Grinning Wolf Games for writing this one for us. He said it could easily have got another 10% on top of what it did score if they do sort those issues out, so all is not lost, let's just hope there's a patch soon. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit to pick this game up or any other for that matter, you can use our website switchup.gg and get your eShop cards from there. Using the code SwitchUp will save you 5% off of your order, and as well as saving you a bit, it does really help the channel out, so if you do use this, it's very much appreciated, thank you. Another thank you to our patrons and our community members of course, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.